Well, that was an interesting episode. But it's keeping up the good quality, so I'm not going to complain too much. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation. I was for anything and everything animation, and welcome to my review of the third episode of Season 3 of Miraculous Ladybug, titled Bakerix. This is a very unique episode of Miraculous, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we get to meet another member of the Dupan Chang family, in this case being the grandfather. It's a very strange old versus new kind of rivalry through most of the episode. The design of the villain Bakerix himself is very interesting, and the ending is really, really sweet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just break it down step by step. First, the basic synopsis. Marinette meets her grumpy grandpa for the first time, leading him to be akumatized into a villain who wants to destroy everything modern in Paris. Because Roland Dupet-Chang is a very old-fashioned guy. He believes in everything having to be done the old-fashioned way. He does not like anything modern. And whenever it's not done his way, or the way that he thinks it should be done, he's going to complain. A lot. So, the episode itself actually starts a bit interesting, with Marinette trying to knit a sweater for a gift for her dad, because her dad's birthday is today. In this episode, obviously. Not today, you know what I mean. And after realizing that her mom failed to try to coerce her grandfather to coming to her dad's birthday, and the mom can tell that he's sad of that fact, Marinette decides to do what Marinette does and try to fix the problem. In this case, initially posing as a flower delivery girl to get inside the house and see him for the first time. And they don't have very good first terms, but it improves rather quickly, so it's not that big a deal. But what's also interesting about this episode is the way it has this conflict of old versus new. Should something be modernized, or should we just keep it the way it is? It leaves you thinking. Because you can see both sides of the argument. You have the old guy who refuses to change anything because he thinks that it's not the right way to do it and that has to be done this way or it's not done correctly. And then you have more modern people like Marinette who think that a little bit of change is never a bad thing. And then she ends up getting in this breading competition with this grandfather. Shortly after she finally reveals herself as the granddaughter. And then, right in the middle of it, she and the grandfather have a disagreement. The grandfather leaves, and he gets akumatized into Bakerix. Now it's up to Ladybug, with the help of Cat Noir, because he has to be in every episode, where he's not mind-controlled, where they have to stop this bred Viking from turning everything back to the olden days. It's interesting. It's a really interesting concept and premise for an episode, not to mention it's one of the more focused and surprisingly deep episodes of Miraculous up to this point. Now, it's not to say we haven't had dark episodes of Miraculous up to this point. We've had some pretty dark, serious episodes. But this one definitely feels more laid back compared to some of the other more action-heavy episodes. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I feel like that also gives more time for the characters to truly shine through here. Even though, I'm just going to be honest, I feel like Cat Noir should not have been in this episode. He barely does anything until the end, where he ends up becoming the judge for the bread competition between the grandfather and Marinette. And outside of that, and of course helping Ladybug fight the villain, he barely does a thing. And he's barely in the episode at all up to that point, so I feel like it would have been better if they cut him out completely, outside of maybe a small appearance during the fight scene, and then keep it focused on the dynamic growing between Marinette and her grandfather. Now for Bakerix himself as a villain. He's definitely one of the more interesting ones. Like, I already talked about how much I like the old versus new concept that drives him to become a villain, but you also have the design of him being a bread Viking. Like a Viking literally made out of all different kinds of bread. First of all, that is extremely unique and clever. 2, the design itself is really, really cool. They did a great job bringing such a silly concept to life. And 3, it's one of the more relatable villains because, again, you can see both sides of the old and new argument. So that makes us like him more, and that makes us try to reason with him more, a lot like Ladybug tries to reason with him, and Cat Noir being Cat Noir just tries to help however he can. And like I said, the ending is cute, where Marinette is able to convince the grandfather to come to his son's birthday party, and yeah, it's a very cute ending. So yeah, this is a very self-contained and very in-depth episode, Miraculous, but I think that's one of its strengths. However, it does have a few problems, because once again, it's not quite a great episode. That's the next one. And that is that it doesn't really have much stakes behind it. Because it's just a very laid-back and more chill episode of the show, rather than the more tense, action-heavy stuff that we're used to. Here, it's just a lot like Season 1's Villain of the Week structure, with a main story revolving around family. Which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but it does hurt it a little bit, because then by the time you get to the fight, you only have so much time before they have to, wrap up and go all the way to the ending of the episode. But they handle it pretty well, even there, so I'm willing to give it a little bit of a pass. But like I said, Cat Noir and / Adrian did not need to be in this episode. He barely does anything. This is one of those episodes where it kind of just should have just been focused on the Dupet Chang family. Which it is mostly throughout, but then Cat Noir just shows up because, he's Cat Noir. But outside of that, Cat / Adrian barely does anything in the episode, so I feel like it was taking time away from how we could keep developing this remending relationship of family between Marinette and Roland. As it is, though, this is still a very good episode. It just has a few little minor flaws that keep it quite out of greatness. As it is, though, it's still another strong 7 out of 10 as a final verdict, and it's another strong episode of this surprisingly very consistent show. Like, I don't understand the people that crap on this show. Like, does it have a couple be below average to bad episodes at times? Sure, but most of the time, it is consistently good, and always creative. So, yeah, that's about it for this one. Bakerix is a very good episode. Check it out. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Chat Small of Animation Station, and I'll see you guys next time for Backwarder, the first great episode of the season. I'll tell you all about it next time. Until then, bug out!